All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Horn Takes podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's hump day. We're halfway through the week, and we've got Mike Hardball Hardge on today, Flow baseball analyst, ESPN Plus baseball analyst, former pro ball player, so we got to get him on here, talk about some baseball. He's got the Hardge Knocks live show on AM 1300, The Zone, and iHeartRadio. 7 to 9 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, right, Mike?
That's right. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. You can check him out on Twitter at Hardball Hardge as well. Good follow there. Today we're going to be talking about some Texas baseball. We got to talk about some Hardwood Horns. And then, if we can make it that long, 2024 wide receiver room. I had somebody ask me the other day, who makes the biggest impact out of this 2024 wide receiver room? So if we got some time, we'll talk about that. Texas baseball, 10-6 on the season, 2-1 in Big 12 play, won 3 of their last 4. Talk about this team so far to date, in your opinion, Mike.
Well, the biggest story about this Texas baseball team has to be about the pitching. The positive is, the offense has been able to score runs. They've always been able to score runs. They will continue to be able to score runs. I actually called the game last night when they played Incarnate Word, and some big home runs, 2-run home runs. But the biggest part about what Texas baseball needs to have accomplished is being able to handle the bump when your 3-man rotation that you have, whether LeBaron Johnson is always going to get the Friday night start, and he's earned that right. But then you got the other 2 positions that you hope can get solidified. You look at what Charlie Hurley was able to do early last year. Coming into this year, you thought he was going to be a solid number 2. They've moved him to the number 3. They've actually moved him around a couple times already, coming out the pen. A couple times that was his side day. But you start looking at this baseball team and you're like, Texas is only going to go as far as its pitching is going to go, because you're going to run into some teams that have got some quality starters. You've got that middle reliever, and of course you're looking at the back end of it. The biggest question mark for this team is going to be their starting pitching right now, but hopefully later it's going to be solidified. But the X factor in all of this is going to be Tanner Witt. What is Tanner Witt going to be able to give you in a rotation or a back end where he might be able to come out and close some of these games? Texas is working on that. I got a chance to talk to David Pierce, and as a matter of fact, you'll get a chance to listen to David Pierce tomorrow morning on the Hardge Knocks Live at 8:40 a.m., so you don't want to miss that. But, the entire year and the entire plus minus on this team has and always will be pitching. You hear the old saying, you've been around the game a long time, good pitching beats good hitting. Well, right now, Texas is looking for some of that good pitching.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats, Hardge, because I started watching. I've been watching all season long, and one of the things Texas fans historically have been able to kind of hang our hats on, Texas has always had some really good quality pitching since I can remember. I'm sure it hasn't always been like that, but since I can remember, always been some quality pitching. And the theme I see this year is just not real quality pitching. And so I went back and looked. The starters are only averaging 3 1/3 right now across all 16 of these games, Hardge. And you can't get it done playing 4 baseball games a week with a limited bullpen if you can only get 3 1/3 out of your starters on average. What do you think is the problem with these guys? Because some of these guys, you look at a guy like LBJ, he's always had the stuff his whole career. I think everybody's known that. And I think, what's kind of held him back is maybe more the mental side of the game, just trusting in himself, believing in his stuff and delivering pitches. You got Tanner Witt that's come off of the Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. And even Charlie Hurley, who has had some really rough starts so far this year. He's shown that he can pitch in some spots at times at his career, in his career at Texas. What's going on with these guys? What are they struggling with right now, do you think?
I don't know if it's the mental part of it. I just think it's that feel part of it. You get out there and you think you got great stuff, and most of them do. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from these guys. They're pitching at an elite level. They're playing D1 baseball at one of the best universities known to man about baseball. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of, to your point, the confidence part, but most importantly, finding that rhythm. A lot of times I was talking to a former pitcher himself, and a lot of it is pitch selection too. You may be doing well with your fastball, but then all of a sudden we get calls of a bunch of breaking balls, and that's not what it is. And I've always equated it to this. As a hitter, we can know what's coming. We can sit on a pitch. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to drive it out of the park. We will pop it up. We'll roll it over. We're not squaring it up every single time. So sometimes overthinking it causes you to screw some things up.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think one of the most interesting things about baseball to me, and I don't have near the experience in the game that you do, and a lot of other guys do, but one of the most interesting things to me is that head game between the hitter and the pitcher, and having the confidence as a hitter, having the confidence as a pitcher to realize even if I do make a mistake and groove one, it's still a really low probability that this guy's going to get a hold of it and put it in play or put it out of the park. I just find it's just such an interesting dynamic. I don't think you see that in any other game, and that's one of the reasons why over the years I've grown to love baseball and really try to understand as much as I can about what's going on in a baseball game and a pitch. Every pitch from pitch to pitch, what's going on in these guys' heads. And that's why I love to hear insight like you've gotten from other guys. I'm right there with you. I think part of it is the trust in the stuff. I think sometimes they get a little too cute and try to be strikeout guys instead of just pumping the zone, and putting guys in play. We saw LBJ against LSU, and LSU did an outstanding job of really taking a lot of close pitches. I think a lot of those pitches with a different guy behind the plate could have been strikes and could have been strikeouts for LBJ because he threw a lot of close pitches. They were able to wait on those pitches and drive his pitching count way up and get him out in 3 innings. And he pitched really well in that game. Honestly, he just couldn't do it for long enough because his pitch count got up.
Well, the thing about it is that's part of the game plan, right? You make him work, make him stick in there and throw a lot of pitches, because a lot of times we like to jump on the first pitch fastball. We see it in there. And Augie Garrido and Cliff Gustafson. Cliff Gustafson recruited me to the University of Texas, and then you start to think about Augie. Those guys made each pitcher work. They made you work. People used to get mad at Coach Gus because he was like, we're going to take the first pitch, guys. We're going to take the first pitch. And everybody's like, he's going to throw me a fastball right down the middle. And he's like, yeah, because his thought process was, you might not do anything with it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it goes back to that conversation we were just having. So to me, that was a great game plan by LSU. Make him work, make him throw a lot of pitches. Let's try to wear him down, and then we'll start wearing him out. Same thing is happening across baseball. When you got those live arm pitchers that have that ability to throw the ball hard, the main thing that I've always been taught, the most important pitch is strike one. Always, no matter what, changeup, fastball, curveball, slider, knuckleball, eephus, whatever you want to throw, make sure the first pitch is first pitch strike, because now the playing field changes. Mm-hmm. And to your point of what you just mentioned about pitch to pitch is so important because every situation changes during that point. So to the mental aspect of it, you have to be able to account and recollect and recalibrate everything that you're getting ready to do, because the next pitch that you throw is the best pitch that you're going to throw. And that's the most important part. But I do believe that some of the game plans that these teams are taking is make Texas throw a lot of pitches, because they will overthrow a little bit.
Yeah, and that's we were talking about incredible insight. I think you just provided some incredible insight about that first pitch strike. And I think that's another area where Texas pitching has struggled this year. They haven't been able to deliver that first pitch strike a lot, like very consistently, I guess. I mean, they've done it a lot. Obviously, they've played 16 games. but not consistently. Like they're not just feeding it in. And that's one of the things I noticed about the game last night. Those guys got up on the bump last night and just started filling it up.
Yep.
And I know, they're playing Incarnate Word. Those hitters, nothing against those hitters, but they're probably not as good a quality hitter as you're going to see at LSU, certainly some of these other SEC schools. But if the game plan is we're not going to attack everything early, we're going to make this guy work, you might as well get it on the right side of the count and deliver that first pitch strike. So, yeah, man, baseball to me is just the most mentally probably taxing game out of all the games, at least that I know. And there's so much going on, so much more going on than people really realize, which is why I think it's a really cool game. Let's talk about the lineup. So obviously early in the season, we're flip-flopping around. We're getting some guys in, some new guys that have just gotten into the program, trying to see who can do what. I feel like Pierce has kind of got it dialed in on what he wants to do from a lineup perspective. Talk about that lineup. Tell us what you think about it.
Well, top to bottom, as we talked about, these guys are going to be able to score. They're definitely going to be able to score, whether it's Jared Thomas at the top, JT. Snake Farm is his song when he comes up to bat. And last night he had a 2-run home run. And then you look at what you have in the number 2 hole. Last night was the first night in 19 games, 20 games that Peyton Powell didn't get a hit. But it wasn't because he didn't have good at-bats. He had good at-bats last night. So you look at those two at the top of the lineup, lefty, and then you throw in there the young Jalen Flores, who's trying to mature and trying to be another one of those top-flight shortstops that the University of Texas has throughout their career here at the university. He's got the big league power. He just needs to be consistent because he's slick as hell at shortstop. He's doing a really good job there. And then you look across the rest of the outfield. Porter Brown is trying to get hot again. His numbers aren't showing that. But if you go and look at his home run numbers, they are catapulting towards the top because he's finding that big power stroke right now. The two positions that I think they need to get the most out of right now is second base and center field. And the only reason why I say center field is Will Gasparino. He's putting up good numbers, but he's a freshman. He's a young guy, and he needs to be consistent in his at-bats, in his approach. Jack O'Dowd, I don't know what the situation is with this young man. He's a mature guy that's been around the game for a very long time. He just can't get it going. And that's a frustrating part of what's going to be happening. And the other position is catcher. Now, hear me out when I say this. Kimball Schuessler is doing a great job behind the plate, but he can't catch every single game. They're dealing with so many injuries behind the plate because right now the DH is Ryan Galvan, and he's dealing with a thumb injury. That's why he's not being able to catch and give Kimball a day off where those two can alternate between DH and catcher. They can't do it because they haven't had enough. And you need to see some of those younger players give themselves an opportunity to find a place in the lineup. But as far as experience, these guys are going to hit. They will hit. And Peyton Powell and JT at the top of that lineup is going to be hell on a lot of these pitchers because they bang the baseball to all parts of the field.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You said it. O'Dowd and Porter Brown have kind of struggled early on this season. They kind of had a coming out party there at the Houston Classic. I think they had 5 home runs between them. Average wise, they're not doing that great, but when they do make that contact, it's Powerball. They're hitting it out of the park. They're getting extra bases. O'Dowd's at 180, Porter Brown at 226 respectively batting average. So not great. And then you mentioned a guy I'm really excited about, Will Gasparino. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one too. I think Friday night out in Lubbock, he goes 5 for 6. And then Sunday in the rubber game, I think he was 0 for 5 or 0 for 4, something like that. Right. So yeah, he's putting up some pretty good numbers, but that consistency's not just there yet. But that comes with time. And I've seen, I've seen guys that have taken 2 or 3 weeks and just struggled. And then all of a sudden you can't throw a pitch by them, the next month. So I think that's just part of baseball, and that's the way it goes.
It is baseball.
Yeah. And then you can hit it really hard, but you hit it right to people sometimes. That's the unfortunate part as well. But yeah, I think this lineup to me looks more dangerous than any lineup they've had in a long time at the University of Texas. I think maybe, I mean, they lead the Big 12 home run or Big 12 in home runs right now with 32. They're on pace for 110. The team record's 128. Is this the type of team with the power they got that could break that 2022 team's record?
Hell to the no.
No.
Hell to the no.
They can't do it.
So. They can't do it just because of the simple fact that you think about that team that had all those thumpers in that lineup. It was thump, 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 top to bottom with some big power. But I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't get in the vicinity of the 110. It's just a matter of being consistent and understanding your approach at the plate and when it's time for you to try to drive one out of the park and making sure you don't miss when they give you that cookie. That's the other part of it.
I hear you right there. That's got to be a frustrating feeling as a hitter to miss that pitch you've been looking for. Did the lineup end up the way you thought it would?
Yeah, pretty much. I thought there would have been some different younger players that might have gotten an opportunity to step into that lineup and do some things. When you get a guy like Will Gasparino, who was supposed to be a very high draft pick, and you get him to be able to come to the university and be your everyday center fielder, you look at that and you say, okay, that's a guy that we expected to be in there. Mm-hmm. But then you also look at it, you weren't sure if Porter Brown was going to get drafted and come back. So now you have him back and you're getting him in the outfield, but you expected him to play a little bit better early because he's an older player and more mature player, all Big 12 type of player. So you're waiting for that. But other than that, I didn't see any other players that were supposed to do the things that they're able to do. I'm really impressed with Max Ballou right now. Mm-hmm. He's somebody that if you've ever seen him in person, and it's so funny because I talked to Greg Swindell, who does LHN, and Greg and I were talking about him because he walked by us one day, and Greg was like, dude, did you see him? Did you see him? And these are, Greg's was in the big league for a long time. He just fits the part. He fits the part. And when the ball jumps off of his bat, it is loud and it has bad intentions.
Yeah, he definitely has some sick power, man. He's put some pitches in some places pitches aren't supposed to go as easily as he's made it look. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think one of the guys I thought just early on might get some playing time, a little more playing time, was D. Kennedy. Kind of in my head, I felt like they were going to put Thomas out in center field. I kind of just thought coming in that was going to be his spot. And so I was thinking, well, D. Kennedy can play second, and then O'Dowd can play first. I think it worked out, though, and I think it's because Ballou came on like gangbusters and kind of shifted all that around. I had Gasparino out in right field kind of as my original preseason, or at least after the first few games, what the lineup would look like. But yeah, pretty potent lineup, a lot of good young. I think it's a good mix of experienced bats and young bats, and a lot of pop all across that lineup.
But I'm with you with D. Kennedy. I think he's the next one.
He's as smooth as silk, man. He's as smooth as silk at second base, like Faltini used to be at shortstop to me, man. Like he could just make every play almost.
I'm a huge, huge fan of D. Kennedy. I was at batting practice yesterday, and the way he puts a charge in the baseball from that position, Coach Steve Rodriguez and I were teammates before. And so he and I were having a conversation, and I asked him, I was like, I like this D. Kennedy. He said, you got a good reason to like him. He's that talented. So you're not that far off on your thought.
Awesome. Well, good. I like to know. I like to some validation every once in a while. Make it seem like I know what I'm talking about. One of the questions someone asked me on TikTok the other day, I did a video about the baseball team, and I don't even think this guy was a Texas fan, but I want to get your take on this. He asked me, is a trip to the College World Series enough for Texas fans? And I don't know if he meant this season or if he just meant like in general. What do you think on that? Because I think that's an interesting question for Texas fans.
Well, the one thing is, and you know this better than anybody, that's what Texas is. I mean, the thought process is getting there. Mm-hmm. The thought process is all about the College World Series. It's College World Series a bust every year. There's no positivity to coming up short. So for me, when you talk about the University of Texas, your thought process as far as being in the College World Series, that's why they don't dogpile. That's why they wait. That's why you got to get there to be able to celebrate that. So for your question that was asked, it's absolutely College World Series or bust.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think if this team doesn't wind up in Omaha, it's been a bum of a year because you're just so used to seeing it over time. I did the math one time. I think it's like 68% of the time that they've been playing the College World Series, the Texas Longhorns have been in the College World Series, which is just it's unbelievable to think about. I think the question is interesting to me because you've got like kind of two sects of Texas fans at this point. To me, you've got the guys that say, you know, when you start talking about Pierce, and this is fan talk. We do this all the time. Oh man, is it time to move on from David Pierce? Or man, should we find another coach? You've got guys that are already throwing that out on the message boards and things. I think both sides of this discussion kind of have good points. One of the points is, yeah, we've made it 3 times under David Pierce to the College World Series. One of those times we were competitive. The other 2 times it was 2 in barbecue. It wasn't even close. They just, you could just tell either they just weren't hot at the time or they just weren't as talented as some of those other teams.
Right.
So, but on the other hand, David Pierce has made it to the College World Series 3 times in 8 seasons at Texas. He was a crazy little pop fly away from going 3 straight years, which I'm told is very, very unique company to be in. It just does not happen. And 3 out of the last 4 years. So you look at the program, it's doing great things. It's finding ways to get hot late in the season and end up in Omaha.
Yep.
So it is kind of, and I think that's what my video was kind of about, talking about that. And the guy was like, is it good enough for y'all to get to the College World Series? I think it's good enough to get to the College World Series, but I sure would like to see this team be competitive like they were in, what was it, 2021?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
I think last year team was the one. That was the one. If that fly ball gets caught and doesn't get lost in the lights, you start thinking about that team because of the momentum and the steamrolling that they had going in the right direction, the energy that they were playing with, the pitching staff that they had, and of course, the players that they had at the plate. So last year was the one that it was like, that one hurt worse than even getting to Omaha. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a really good team, and they did get real hot in that regional out in Miami. So we'll wish the best for them the rest of the season. Still a long way to go. I think anybody that's either too high on this team or too low on this team right now just needs to chill. There's a long way to go. I think they had that rough start, especially when you look at the Houston Classic. That was a really rough weekend. That Aggie game was a really rough game to watch for a Texas fan. But they went up to Lubbock, took 2 or 3 from a Lubbock, from a Texas Tech team that could beat the ball up pretty good. And they held them down pretty well for most of that series. So I think they can do it. I think the arms are there. The stuff is there from this pitching rotation. I think they just got to get the mental side down and just trust themselves a little more. And this team will be one of those teams we're talking about come the end of the season, I think.
And the Big 12 isn't as great as everybody thinks it is, too. So that always plays into it. So
yeah, that's
just
true.
Wait and see and just play it out.
Exactly. Well, let's jump ship over to some Hardwood Horns real quick. Congrats to those ladies for winning the Big 12 title last night. I get beat up sometimes for not talking about the lady sports as much, so that's a shout out to the ladies. They've had a great season. I believe they're going to be probably going to be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Any chance they get a 1 seed?
I think they're going to be a 1, and they're going to be able to host. I think they're hosting here in the next couple of weeks. I mean, that Vic Schaefer's done an unbelievable job with that squad, being able to lead them, especially after losing Rory Harmon. And now for them to go in there, win the Big 12 championship in the tournament, was a couple seconds away against Oklahoma in the end of the regular season from winning that game and being outright Big 12 champs. It's been very impressive to watch. And again, they may have another National Player of the Year type of person in Madison Booker.
Yeah, I mean they definitely have some talent on that team. It'll be interesting to see how far they can make it. But again, congrats to the ladies. Good luck in the tournament. Flipping over to the men's side, 2011, 9-9 in Big 12 play. Not, I don't think, what a lot of Texas fans kind of expected after that Elite Eight run last season, especially after getting Dessou back. We know he was unhealthy at the end of the tournament last year. Took him a while to get recovered and get back in the swing of things. Been playing really, really well since he's been back, but it just hasn't always translate to wins on the court. And in some of and what's interesting to me about this team, first of all, I know they're in a great league. Like the Big 12 has to be, if it ain't the best league in college basketball, the other one's not that much better. So really lots of really good teams, but it's so interesting to me how they could play so well against some of these, upper echelon teams. And then the next time they play, they get run out of the building, or they go play some team that you wouldn't look at and go, that's one of these elite Big 12 teams, get run out of the building. What do you think's going on with the consistency with this team?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the chemistry. You talked about it. There's been a lot of injuries. There's been some guys in the lineup that have been out of the lineup. There hadn't been a lot of flow. I think sometimes, too, you have to find the right people to be part of what you're doing. And what I mean by that is you start looking at this squad and you get a Keldon Shedrick, big man. Well, they don't normally play with two big men on the floor. So Dylan can push it out and shoot from the perimeter, but then Shedrick's inside, and so the guards can't get to the rim the way that they want to because it's clogged up. So you're trying to figure out how we're going to be able to complement this player with that player and finding the spacing. Spacing is everything with this basketball team. When you got a guy like Max Asmus who can fill it up from anywhere, he can, but he's also the one that they go to on the mismatch on the defensive end. So if they and Texas plays so much man-to-man, I don't think Rodney Terry or his staff knows how to coach a zone defense, because I think that would save a lot of these guys as well on those switching, because then they can't create that mismatch with Max Asmus where everybody's trying to back him down or get him in the post because he is the littlest guy out there. But you start looking around and you start trying to figure out, can this team make a run? I believe they can make a run because they got to get a third musketeer on this deal. They got to get that three amigos to go, no matter who it may be. One game, it may be Dylan Mitchell, along with Dylan Dessou and Max Asmus. But just recently, it was Tyrese Hunter, and he was able to ball. So if we get that form of Tyrese, this team is going to be tough to beat, especially if Dylan keeps playing well and can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the roster and you got to think there's a lot of talent there. And I think we should have known coming into this season, like you pointed out, chemistry is going to be it takes a while to get that many different guys used to playing together and all on the same page, paddling in the same direction, so to speak. Yeah. They enter the tournament, I believe, this Big 12 tournament. They're a 7 seed. They got K-State tonight at 6 p.m. If they win that one, they go on to play Iowa State, I believe, at 6 p.m. tomorrow. What's the outlook look like for this Big 12 tournament? And then talk to us a little bit about, can this team do anything in this Big 12 tournament to take that 8 seed a little higher in the NCAA tournament? Because I think last bracketology I saw, they were pretty much locked in as an 8 seed.
I think they can win 2 games in this Big 12 tournament. That's my hope. That's my plan. And I think the way that they play and the matchups that they had, you brought it up. Every game they played, they've been in the game. They hadn't really been getting their head kicked. They should have beat University of Houston at home when they had them up against the ropes. That would have been a big win. But University of Houston, being who they are, find a way to win. So to answer your question, I think if Texas wins 2, they're definitely going to be at least a number 7 seed or a 6 seed. I don't think they'll be an 8 or a 9 seed. I think they're going to be one of those teams that nobody is going to want to play because there's so much talent.
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting if they get into that type of role, that spot in the tournament, if they can be some of those spoilers. I was talking on the show a couple weeks back, baby, about, there's always a team that nobody expects to do something in the tournament that makes a deep run into the tournament, and it might as well be Texas. And I think they're more talented than a lot of those teams that people don't expect that make a deep run in the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. I know for me, I am not a huge basketball guy in the first place, so this has been a really frustrating season. Watching these guys just be so up and down. But yeah, we'll be looking forward to that game tonight, and hopefully they'll be on to play ISU tomorrow at 6 p.m. Can I keep you for 5 more minutes?
Yep. You got
all
it.
right. Let's talk about it. 2024 wide receiver room. We're a week out from spring practice. We're excited about that. I think, to me, this is probably the biggest question mark that I really don't think is a question mark. The only reason I say it's a question mark is because we don't know who these people are going to be. We don't know who that starting three is going to be and who's going to be the standout of that group. But that wide receiver room is absolutely loaded with guys right now. I mean, even with the exit of Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington, which, by the way, was 2,300 yards and 17 touchdowns worth of offense last season. You lose that, and you got to be thinking, we are done. Like, we're in bad trouble. And then it gets worse. You look at the veterans coming back. Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett, they got 136 yards between them, and they all came from Jonte Cook. So you're like, wow, who's going to catch the ball for this team? Then they bring in a really good recruiting class, 4 guys right there in that recruiting class, really highly rated. And then the portal time happens. They go out and get Bond. They go out and get Golden. That's a little over 1,000 career yards, or a little over 1,000 yards last year and 10 touchdowns between those guys. The thing I like about Golden,
and don't forget about Silas Bolden too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The thing I like about Golden is those kick returns. Man, that dude averaged like 35 yards per kick return last year on 9 kick returns. Housed 2 of them. Very explosive guy. Hit Texas up for 2 touchdowns last year. Who has the biggest impact out of that group of guys? To me, it's almost like a crapshoot. And I told a guy yesterday that asked me that question. I said, I think if anybody tells you, they're kind of just lying. They're like making up stuff because there's so much unknown. But we like to talk sports. We got to talk about it. Hardge. Who's that big impact guy in that wide receiver room?
Well, you mentioned it. I think one of the biggest guys that's going to have a huge impact is going to be Jonte Cook. Jonte Cook was somebody that I was praying that they would get on the field last year. Somehow, some way, find a place for that young man to be on the field and let him go to work because he is that electric. You brought up Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden and what they've been able to do. But to me, you got to look at all of these guys, and this is the challenge of Coach Sark. How are you going to divide up this repertoire of players to where everybody's going to be happy? Mm-hmm. It'll never happen, number one, because there's not enough footballs to go around to everybody. There's not enough playing time that you can actually offer to everybody. But you have to get Jonte Cook in there because he's the leader in the clubhouse. As you said, he was the guy that did everything when he first, he's the one that put up the yards. But I'm looking at Isaiah Bond, and I'm also looking at Ryan Niblett. Ryan Niblett, one of the fastest dudes in their program. How is Sark going to utilize him? That is my biggest question. We know what these other guys are going to do. Ryan Niblett with a 4.29 40. I want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, speed kills, obviously, and I think that's why, Xavier Worthy's draft stock has had to have gone up a little bit after busting off a 4.22. I think you ran a 4.22 and then a 4.25 right after that. You look at a guy like Adonai Mitchell, who's 6'2", and they do these weird measurements in the NFL Combine, almost like they're measuring wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, he's around 6'2", around 200 pounds, and ran a 4.37 or something like that. So he's smoking fast too. I
didn't realize that.
I didn't realize he was that fast. I knew he had some speed, but I didn't think he was that speed. Just some incredible times for those two guys and matter of fact, for all the guys that went to the Combine for Texas, some really impressive stuff there. But I'm with you on that. That's one of the things that has always kind of concerned me and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't concern us because he can just go recruit some more guys, and he can go out to the portal and get some more guys. You're gonna lose guys because like you said, you can't get them all on the field. Even if you can get them all on the field, they're not all going to be happy with their role. Some of them don't want to hang on a couple years and be that guy. They want to go be that guy somewhere else. That's just going to keep happening. But I think there's one thing now that like another tool Steve Sarkisian has that he can stick in his toolbox now is I went to the University of Texas and I turned a 4-star into probably, I mean, he might be a first-round pick, definitely a second-round pick, definitely a day one guy. I had Adonai Mitchell come in for one season, and he did this. He's going to be able to recruit wide receivers now, and you just keep adding. I mean, he's always been able to do it, but I think it's even more, kind of how he was the QB whisperer at Alabama. I think you're going to start to see Sark be known as the wide receiver guy. People, these kids are going to want to go play for Steve Sarkisian. Yeah, he does. He does. He absolutely does have some really good arms there at the quarterback position. A guy that kid out of Houston, Cy-Fair area that his name escapes me right. I think, Trey, man, I think that guy might surprise some people. He's a big kid and he's got a really nice ball. So yeah, I like Jonte Cook. I like him a lot. If he's the guy, I will certainly like to see that. I just think with the experience that Bond and Golden have, I think for me it's got to be one of those two guys. Bond made some really big plays last year for Alabama.
For sure.
And like we talked earlier,
how you going to share that?
No, you're right. You're right. He needs to send the plays in. Yeah, he needs to send
ends that are dope too.
Yes, he does. He's got Nye Black. He's got
Gunnar
Helm. There's a couple young guys. Washington, I believe Jordan Washington's one of those young tight ends. It's a wealth of talent that he's got there, but with that comes just a really hard time keeping everybody happy. Hardge, I appreciate you hanging out with us today. Thanks for coming on the show, and we're gonna have to get you on more because I love talking baseball with you.
Appreciate it.
You got the insight. I like to hear it, and I just think I bet you got some stories. We just need to do like a weekend. We'll get us some beer and we'll just sit down and talk on the line all day long about baseball. That would be awesome. Again, thanks for jumping on, Hardge. We will talk some more next week about these Hardwood Horns, what they did in this Big 12 tournament. We'll talk some more about this Texas baseball team. We're geared up for spring football. We're ready for that.
All right.
Yep. Right. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts, folks. Have a good one, Hardge. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe. Help me out. Won't cost you guys a thing. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend and get hooked. Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you.